Every year, Jan Markell of Olive Tree Ministries releases her 10 top prophetic events. She's joined us to give us that list. Folks, it's my great pleasure to have Jan Markell of Olive Tree Ministries. She's the hostess of Understanding the Times radio program and a contributor to this book, Lawless, along with Dr. David Reagan and myself. Jan, every year you release a top 10 prophetic trends. She follows prophetic events very closely and then shows what the top 10 are that are affecting the year. Jan, your top 10 list from 2020 really blew my mind. I have it here. Can we go through this and let people know what you believe is the top 10 events?
Sure. I think the number one is obvious, and these don't have to be in order necessarily, but I put this as number one, and that's the decline of America. Who would have thought, say, 10 years ago that in 2021, looking back, or even looking forward, that America would be in kind of the state of decline that she is governmentally and in every other way. I mean, our debt is soaring. It's sort of out of control now. Everything seems to be coming apart at the seams here in America. And when America's unstable, the whole world is.
Well, number two kind of follows up with that. Jan wrote The Rise of Lawlessness, Anarchy, and the Spirit of the Antichrist. I think we saw it in 2020 with the riots, both parties rioting. We saw lawlessness, defund the police. Clearly, people are rebelling against all authority.
Absolutely, Nathan. Rebellion is the name of the game. And I think that was topic, I think, number two for the last year and going forward.
Okay, what do you think three is?
Well, I put it to number three, not necessarily the third most important, but certainly prominent, some Middle East peace efforts, because that's what's going to launch the tribulation, will be Middle East peace. And we had it in the last year. We had the deal of a century in January of 2020. We had the Abraham Accords later in the year. And since then, we had other nations in November, December, and going on into 2021, signing on to the Abraham Accords. Now, we can debate whether America or any other country should be dealing with land issues in the Middle East. I mean, I kind of think we shouldn't, but that's not the point. The point is, I think that the peace efforts of the very, very final days could tag on to some of these things.
Excellent. Well, Jan's fourth point was increasing attacks on Christians, Christianity, and churches. I think 2020 showed our country's ultimate contempt for churches. They prefer them to be closed. They'd rather open casinos and nightclubs. And churches are irrelevant. And America has clearly declared itself to be a post-God institution with its almost attacks on churches throughout quite a number of our states. So your fourth point was very well made.
Well, as you say, the church is not essential. I mean, a Costco shopping mall is essential. Other things that shouldn't be essential, marijuana shops are declared essential, but the church was a gross inconvenience, and I believe it's only going to continue to be tremendous inconvenience to a godless set of new leadership. Excellent
point. What would you say your fifth one is?
I have to go back to the apostasy in the church and wolves among the flock. And I get emails, as does your ministry, Nathan, the false teaching that has entered the church. That's just staggering. And we did a previous program, you and I said that I think the dropping of the subject of the rapture is a part of this apostasy. This was front and center from years ago, 50, 40 years ago, front and center in the pulpit, and now it's vanished. But I think it's all because the growing apostasy, this new apostolic reformation, that's a whole program we can't get into, critical race theory, it could go into all sorts of things that are taking over the pulpit when what you and I are talking about should be in the pulpit, but it's not. False teaching is in the pulpit.
They're teaching everything but the gospel, it seems.
Yes.
I think too, number 6 was an excellent point. Jan said number 6 was pre-tribulation birth pains. In other words, the signs of the times that Jesus gave us, especially in Matthew 24 and Luke 21, point to the fact that we're in the season of the Lord's return, and we're seeing those birth pangs, as Jesus compared them to, increasing in frequency and intensity the closer we get to his returns. I think we're probably dilated 9 centimeters at this point now, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And those are heartbreaking to watch. I mean, we watch them, be it fires, be it hurricanes, whatever. They're so intense now that it's nothing like I've ever seen in my lifetime. I would say the last 1 to 5 years. But I think God's sending a message. Get ready. Be ready.
Absolutely. What's your 7th?
Well, for number 7, I included the continued decline of the culture. The pro-pedophilia things that are going on in various parts of the country. The fact that I see parts of America and the Western world being turned over to a Romans 1 mentality. Here in Minneapolis, where I headquarter, we've got a defund the police movement. Well, now we had 5 miles of our city of Minneapolis burned to the ground in May. And the result of that, you would think, would be let's boost our police force and let's have a law and order campaign. Just the opposite. Defund the police, get rid of the police. This is delusional thinking. This is a decline of the culture that people would want to get rid of the people that keep you safe. And then that ties in with my 8th point, the rise of strong delusion. So I think they go together. When the culture declines, and right along with that comes the rise of strong delusion. So it's a 1-2 punch that we've seen all of 2020 going into 2021.
Absolutely. It's interesting. Your 9th point Jan gave was the COVID-19, and I like how you put 84 surveillance state worsening in preparation for the New World Order. We're certainly living in a time period where cameras and social tracking, social credit scores, facial recognition, the people that took over the legislation and during that Trump rally, they have a website now that identifies all 6,000 people so that they can identify them and report them to the FBI. That's a surveillance state mentality.
It is. And this started some years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago. But 2020 is what absolutely, well, it went on overdrive in 2020. And your illustration there of the 6,000 photos is perfect. Right now, we've got a surveillance system that is second to none, but it's being used for evil and not for good.
And what's your 10th and final point, Jan?
Well, I see a longing for a Mr. Fixit, for a man with a plan, for someone who can come in and make all these negative things go away. I mean, I would say it's a longing for a savior. You and I know it's a longing for the Antichrist, which Christians aren't longing for, but the secular world is longing for a savior or a Mr. Fixit, and they have for decades. But my goodness, you look at the fallout from COVID-19, the destruction that's happened as a result of that, all the businesses wiped out, churches that are closed forever, all sorts of wreckage, businesses. I mean, just the financial loss from what's happened in 2020 is staggering. And people would like someone to come along and say, I can fix it. They'll run to him with open arms, and they'll say, we'll do anything you want us to do if you can make it all go away and if you can get us back to normal. So he'll say, I have the answer. It's a vaccine that'll get you back to normal. That's coming, and it probably will be mandatory.
I understand that, yeah. Well, folks, if you want to learn more about Jan Markell's top 10 trends and others, check out the information below, visit her website. And to prepare for all this, you need to have your heart right with Jesus Christ. Have you given your life to Jesus Christ? Today's the day to do it. Put your faith and trust in him. You will be saved, and you will know Jesus Christ as your Savior. Godspeed.